is the Celebrity Afterlife Report podcast.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Celebrity Afterlife Report, a weekly roundup of the latest gossip about all your favorite deceased celebrities. I am your host, the Celebrity Medium. Let's kick this thing off. Okay, I thought we'd start with one of the strangest ongoing stories on the next world celebrity scene. For new listeners, I'll recap the story so far. Former President Abraham Lincoln and singer Whitney Houston, known by many as the Afterlife's Oddest Couple, have been together for some time now. Now, while they seem to be very much in love, the relationship hit a bump a few months back over Abe's use of the term charming negress to describe his beautiful partner. Whitney took offense to that archaic language, and it took some sweet talking by Honest Abe to get back on her good side. As one of the next world's most talked about duos, it didn't take long before they got an offer to star in their own reality TV show. In addition to that, as I reported on last week's report, James Brown approached Ms. Houston to be a star in his upcoming traveling show, James Brown's Soul Circus. Okay, with that information, you are now up to speed. Here's the latest wrinkle in the story. As you may know, President Lincoln's earthly plane wife, Mary Todd, was, to say the least, somewhat emotionally unstable. In today's world, she might be diagnosed as bipolar. Well, it seems that death hasn't mellowed her personality much, unfortunately. She has made it something of a hobby to show up anywhere Whitney is performing, interrupting the shows by standing up and screaming, "Give me back my man!" and similar things. Most recently, she has been wearing disguises to dodge the security Whitney has employed to keep her out of the venues. While Mary Todd's craziness is irritating audiences that came to hear Whitney Houston sing, the producers of her and Abe's still-in-production reality show are said to be ecstatic about them, seeing it as an unexpected plot element. The show is, after all, titled The Crazy World of Abe and Whitney. If you were a young man in the next world, chances are you'd be a fan of the long-running morning drive radio show Babe and His Bullpen, hosted by New York Yankee legend Babe Ruth. The show on popular station Heaven 107, I'm told, makes Howard Stern in his prime sound tame. The afterlife is free of the most of the bureaucracy of Earth's plain government, so there is no regulation of the airwaves there. And from what I've heard about the show, the Bambino is taking full advantage of that freedom, including some regular bits too raunchy for me to describe on this podcast. Like everyone else there, Babe looks like he did at his adult best, so he certainly could go back to playing baseball if he wanted to, but by all accounts, Mr. Ruth is enjoying his new career and the female groupies that it affords him. That would explain why he recently rebuffed an offer from George Steinbrenner to join his new Yankees team. With no budget or payroll to worry about, it's up to individual team owners to convince any deceased players they want to join their teams. Steinbrenner was known as a fierce competitor on the earthly plane, and it would seem that he hasn't changed in that regard. My sources tell me he is trying everything he can think of to woo Ruth. The Babe could join any team he wanted to, if he wanted to, that is, but from what I'm told, sources close to the Slugger say he has no desire to don the pinstripes or any other uniform anytime soon. It seems that, at least for now, the Bambino is happier behind the microphone than behind the plate. We've been following the story of Elvis Presley, who got so tired of being mobbed by his Next World fans that he disguised himself by shaving his head and donning robes everywhere he went. The disguise worked for a while, but eventually Afterlife paparazzi, including some of my sources, caught on and blew the King's cover. Elvis finally decided that while he had no interest in performing again, he should give his rabid fans something to make them happy. To that end, he contacted the late comedian Andy Kaufman, who Elvis had referred to on the earthly plane as his favorite impersonator of all time. The two worked out a deal for Andy to tour as Elvis Two, performing all of Presley's greatest hits in concert. Now, of course, this wouldn't be an Andy Kaufman story without a strange twist. Andy insisted that the opening act be his doppelganger, Tony Clifton. Elvis agreed, but if what my sources are telling me is true, he may be reconsidering that decision. At the first 2 stops on the concert tour, Clifton was at his obnoxious best, insulting members of the audience and insisting on doing his own, shall we say, unique versions of some of Elvis's biggest numbers. When Andy, as Elvis Two, took the stage, he had to spend the first few minutes of his set apologizing for Clifton's behavior. At both shows, there were more than a few walkouts during Clifton's set, and rumor has it that the real Elvis may be considering cutting the tour short, as Andy's agreement with him specifies that he will only perform if Clifton is the opening act. Before I wrap up this edition of the report, a quick follow-up to a story we told you about several months back. As I reported at the time, Mother Teresa, the famous nun from Calcutta, India, has changed occupations in the next world. As there is no poverty there, Mother Teresa decided to indulge herself. To that end, she has become a disco diva. As unlikely as it seems, her act is very popular, especially with gay men. Although the good sister seems oblivious to this fact, the boys see her show as the height of camp. All of her performances are greeted by tumultuous applause and cheering, most of them ending with a standing ovation. It may be ironic, but Terry, as her adoring fans call her, seems to have no idea about that. I'm told that 2 of her most ardent fans are fashion designers who have been working on producing stage outfits for her in the style of Bob Mackie at his most outrageous. It is rumored that the 2 are competing with each other to come up with more and more outlandish costumes for the ex-nun, trying to see how far they can push it before Terry catches on. Hey, all I can say is after a lifetime of working for some of the poorest people on earth, she deserves all the fun she can have in the afterlife. Okay, that does it for this edition of the Celebrity Afterlife Report. Please come back next time when we will have yet another roundup of the latest gossip about all your favorite deceased celebs. I am the Celebrity Medium. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the Celebrity Afterlife Report podcast. To ask a question about your favorite deceased celebrity, call 818-3-MY-DREAM. 818-3-MY-DREAM. 818-369-3732.